What up, y'all? It's your boy, and I'm back again with another episode. Welcome again to the Hood Nerd Red Pill Talk presents the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to have a conversation about the damage the Cosby Show did to Black America. And it wasn't until I became an adult and rewatched it with 30-year-old eyes that I could even begin to digest some of the damage that was done. I know that most people who grew up watching it, or even young people looking at it, we look at it through the lenses of when life was good for us as children. And it gave you hope. So I know you're thinking if it gave you hope, what was the damage that it did? It destroyed the image of the blue collar worker to Black women in Black America. See, what happened back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, a lot of 50s, 60s, 70s, a lot of Black men who own their own businesses. Dry cleaners, shoe shops, meat stores, deli stores, pharmacies. All these things were going on. We owned those things at that point. That was cool. And then the Cosby Show came along and, George Jefferson was no longer good enough. James Evans was no longer good enough. That was deemed as struggle love now. George Jefferson, nobody wants to marry a guy like that. Even though he owns his own stuff, ran his own business. But it starts off, I know if you guys, my angle on a lot of things. It comes from the Black male perspective. When you think of the children, Theo was the dumbest kid. It's the only kid with a learning disability. Everybody else was sharp. Denise skated through high school with great grades. Sandra skated through. Vanessa skated through. Rudy never really had issues in school. The only one who had issues in school was who? Theo. So, you have Bill Cosby's the alpha. Then you have Theo as the son. But if you look at it, it's the dumb son. The other black male representation we have is dumb Black male representation. And, that's cool if that's how you choose to do it. But, that's not even what I'm all the way upset with. They set a goal for Black men to meet something, and now the chickens have come home to roost the last 10 years. Because see, now there are not enough Black doctors and lawyers out here for these women. So what are they saying? I shouldn't have to carry a relationship. Now again, he can be a blue collar, but guess what she's gonna say? Doesn't have the prestige I need. I can't show him off. Not in the circle I live in. Now, that's interesting on a lot of levels. Because see, what's going on also is you start to take a look around at how things happened for us in school, and especially how it affected the Black male. See, what started happening also is what? Garbage man was frowned upon. So, see, even though Rock had a middle class family and Rock did well for himself in Baltimore, made good money, guess what we did? We shitted on Rock because he was a garbage man. Overton worked for himself on Living Single, but guess what happened? He was the super, I would say that, but well, I won't say work for himself, but he was the super there. But guess what we did for Overton? He's a handyman. We shitted on him. He's not good enough for the Maxes in the regimes. He's just basically the silly looking dude. So, that is what it is. Now, everybody loved Cal, but Cal was a stockbroker. Or whatever he was. It was a white collar job. Let me not say a stockbroker. When you look at Martin, Martin got a pass, even though Martin didn't make too much money at the radio station because of why? He was deemed to be famous. And since he was deemed to be famous, see, popularity also exceeds money in our culture. So, you can be a radio personality and you'll have any woman you want, basically, only making $30,000 a year. And that's a great job. Now, what happened to the mechanic who's now making 95 to 100,000? But when they see him, he's in his work boots, some dirty pants, and basically a dingy t-shirt. What happened? They don't want to deal with him anymore. He's no longer desirable. The nerve. He's no longer desirable. The comic book cat. He's no longer desirable. The thug is desirable because he's the bad boy. But once he gets a certain age, and this is the trick bag women put them in. Once a woman has sold her royal oats, she's had a good time, she's ready to get married, guess what happens to the thug? I need a man who's serious about life and got a 401k and coming with some health benefits. See, then all of the important things, then they matter. Now you have to understand, before this, these men were desirable to black women. That was a get to get a hardworking man. That's what you wanted to head the household. But see, after the Cosby Show, it became a point where it started to be, how can I respect a black man if he doesn't have the status I have? If I have a master's degree or a doctorate, how can I respect a black man who doesn't have that? Which means now status equals respect. And that's what the Cosby Show basically did. If you did not have the status, there was no respect for you. They don't care if you're a manager. If you're not managing a Fortune 500 company, they don't really want to hear it. And see, the first thing a woman gonna do when it comes to respect, we're at a place now where, what do they say? How much do you make? That dictates respect to them. Now, the other thing the Cosby Show did was it helped to usher in the student loan hustle for Black America. And I'm going to tell you how that happened. Because for black men, this is exactly what happened. We stopped going to trade schools. That was no longer desirable after we saw Bill Cosby. To me, it was Black America's first power couple. put on TV for the world to see. Now, if you remember the original show, I think the first episode, I don't think Claire was a lawyer then. But I think some people probably went back to Bill because they didn't even have, I don't even think Sandra existed at that point. When they came back, I believe Claire was a lawyer now, and they had a daughter named Sandra. So in my eyes, looking back at it, you start to look and say, okay, there was an agenda probably told to them, whereas if you stick to these guidelines, we can move with this. But being a blue collar guy was no longer acceptable. And once men started to understand that, and parents started to see the Cosby Show, and they fell into the dream of it and the vision of it, where it was, if you get your college education and you do all this, you'll make a lot of money. Well, in 2021, guess what we found out? It's a lot of people in debt, and people with doctors, well, not doctors, people with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, they're making the same amount of money as blue collar people. Now, what they'll now tell you is, but I have more status than you. Because that's all a silly game is at the end of the day. It's just status. Because if you really think back to the Cosby Show, well, let's stick to this other point first before we even get to that. See, the Cosby Show started pushing college for black children. And I know people will say there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, nothing wrong with that if that's what you wanted to do. But what we found out was there was a lot of children who didn't want to go to college, but ended up going to college because they didn't want to let their parents down. And they wanted to be the next. This was the dream now. This was the dream they started to sell Black America. You go to college and you get you a Bill Cosby. You get you a Cliff Huxtable. And that's interesting. But what they also did was, to further that agenda, what did they do? They spawned it off, sent Denise to college, HBCU, and what did they give you? They gave you a different world. So see, they kept selling the college life to you. And even if they changed the focus of the show, where it was really just about Dwayne, who was done with college, basically, Whitley, who was done, what did they always do? They always kept it so that they could center it around college. They kept them around Hillman. That still stayed the foundation of the show was Hillman College. Fine, whatever. Like I said, as a young kid, I didn't see the correlation. But even then, it's sending the message to black men to do what? Go to college, party, have a good time. Now, we done selling you Heathcliff and Claire. Now we selling you Dwayne and Whitley. But it's still what? White collar jobs. Now, even with that, you started to see what? You start to see on a different world, them starting to wear a lot of HBCU jogging suits, sweatsuits, became very famous. Even kept it going to Martin and Living Single. And after so long, it had been done with the blink of an eye. Everybody was going to college. You graduated from high school, you went to college. People didn't graduate from college, or people did graduate. They're in a boatload of debt now. You can thank the Cosby Show for that. Now, let's get back to what I was getting ready to say before I finish this is, what lessons did you learn from them as parents? What did they teach us about Black America? Cliff never really had the sex talk with Theo. Now, they had a conversation about dyslexia. It's fine. You know, I'm always talking to my wife, and she's always just like, yo, when they come down the stairs, like the kids, hair done, they at the table eating breakfast. They basically told you Claire was the first superwoman. She is the genesis of black feminism. Now I know most people will say it's Florence from the Jeffersons, and she is, but she's low level black feminism. This is what Claire is what black women aspire to be at this point. And they're looking for their Cliff Huxtable at the end of the day. Now, when you think about that, you have to now think Bill Cosby's job was what? Exactly. Bill Cosby's job was he was the one who took the children to school, picked the children up from school. He was the one you saw sitting down doing homework. He was the one you saw cooking. Even showed the girls how to mop a floor correctly. While I was basically, and they basically had him looking like, even though he delivered babies and he saw his patients, he had his own office in the basement. They basically made that seem like what? A part-time job. You would see him periodically, yo, I got to go deliver a baby. Or he would get up at night and go, I'm going to deliver the baby. I got to go to the hospital. I'm out. So what image were they still portraying? That a real black man can be a white collar guy, hold down the fort, support his wife, do all of the things necessary to make her happy and run the house. He effectively was Superman in the show. If you just really sit back and think about it, he basically played the woman's, what would be called the woman's role in the show. He was the one who worked, cooked, cleaned, did all these things, held it together. But when it came to intellect, and him and Claire would have conversations, he would look like what then? The unintelligent one. They would never make them be equals when they would have debates. It would always be Claire basically laughing at him or smirking as if, yeah, okay, Cliff, you got it. Which is something a lot of black men deal with. And like I said, just in my head, thinking back to what the Cosby Show actually was, man, it just didn't dawn on me how bad it was, man. 4 girls, 1 boy. Now, I know Bill Cosby would say, it's a mirror image of his own show. But I want you to remember back to that How Ugly Is He episode when Denise had the boyfriend, I think David. Now, she didn't want to bring him home. They had Cliff thinking he was this aggressive guy. No, they had us thinking Cliff was this aggressive guy. Let me rephrase that. Dad's going to scare him. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. All of these things, but there never was context to it. There was never context to any real situations going on the show. If you think about even when Pam came, their children were thought to be, the Cosby kids was thought to be goody two-shoes. But when you dealt with Pam, she was from the other side of the tracks. So they could have a sex conversation with her. She was out having sex early, young. You never really had those conversations with Theo, Sandra, Denise, Vanessa. Well, you had Vanessa and Jeremy. So you did have Vanessa and Jeremy. But no, even when you think of and Vanessa and Jeremy was a situation, it really wasn't about well it was, because he wanted to have sex, but Vanessa was just like, no, I'm not doing it. They didn't end up having sex. But back to that episode. You get David, who they find out is basically a genius. So they warming up to him. They in love with him. Straight A student. And then what does he do? He says, I wonder, what I really don't understand, Mrs. Huxtable, is why do you divide your time between pursuing your career and raising your family? That's the first time we realize Bill Cosby makes a lot of money. So now, he says, the point is your husband makes a tremendous amount of money at home. Shouldn't you just stay at home with the kids? And you saw her give the eye roll. Now, it's the first time I didn't even know then at that point what a sexist statement meant. I just didn't. Went right over my head. I mean, I knew he was wrong for asking the question, but in your head, you don't really understand the ramifications of kind of what all of that meant at this point. So they had that. She basically gets wrecked. She basically goes off. Asks, why don't you ask Dr. Huxtable that statement? And it's the way what they want men to behave. But see, what you also have to understand is, what does the feminist woman want? That woman still wants to be a lawyer. She still wants the doctor, but she wants to be deemed as equal. Now, what does she want though? She still wants the doctor to make more money than her. She still wants him to behave in a way the prehistoric man behave, but she wants to live in modern society, which is why men are left out here dumbfounded and perplexed at what's actually going on. And just to, move topics for a quick second, it's again when we talk about the Dr. Dre situation, which I'll cover tomorrow with my weekly wrap up on Crock Pot Talk. You look at the Dr. Dre situation, and it goes to why I tell people when Kevin Samuels is trying to convince people. It's the one thing I always tell people I disagree with him on. And it's him, when you find a high value man can do this and do that, and I need this and I need that. You have all these men thinking, well, okay, if I go get the job, I had the swag, I'm going to be okay. She's going to still leave. I keep telling you guys. Michael Jordan's wife left. Bill Gates' wife left. Jeff Bezos' wife left. Dr. Dre's wife left. Like, just because you have the money, that doesn't mean anything. It's just one less thing for a woman to complain about at the end of the day. But it doesn't mean she's going to stay forever. But at that point, she's going to tell you what? She's going to penalize you for your work ethic at that point and say, you don't spend time with me. But babe, why would you cheat on me with him? He don't have nothing because he available. So see, now a bum is perfect for her. Somebody who has no work ethic, he's perfect for it because what? We gonna have sex and chill out, and I'm gonna get spoiled emotionally over here, but I'm spending your money. It's an interesting dynamic. Now, you have to understand also when we talk about sexism in the show and the feminist movement, how did they make Bud? Man's name was Kenny, but she wouldn't call him Kenny. He would always say, my name's Kenny. What would Rudy say? You Bud to me, there's no respect. And it was funny to them. At a young age, that's amusing to them. That is very amusing to them that a bud. Let me lower this right here. All right, there we go. Now, you have to think, what does that mean? Now, what they have is they have Bud having a conversation, and Bud is kind of just going. Bud is kind of, yo, this is not what a woman's supposed to do. That's a man's job. A man should be doing this. Man should be doing that. Now they have a 6, 7, 8-year-old boy having feminist conversations. Why is that? Because they want to drive home the point of what? Women are to be the leaders in the world at this point. They are to be respected. Now, we can respect women, but when he says, hey, my name is Kenny, what does she say? Okay, Bud. That's funny to everybody. But see, it shows a lack of respect already from woman, from girl to boy, which now evolves from woman to man. No respect in the home. There's no respect in our culture at this point, from women to men. Now, you have to also think, when we're thinking it's this love and show, you got Bud already. Who's the next guy we meet? No, I think we meet Elvin first, but you get Elvin. You have to think they're bringing in all of these men with these prehistoric values and ideas to show that, yo, you need to respect your woman. And yes, I can call you stupid. I can do these things to you, but you need to respect her. Is that the world we're trying to live in? Is that the equality we're looking for? Which is why I tell Black people in general, when they say, yo, racism is crazy and all this, are the rules really bad? Or is it who's in control that's really bad? Because I have a sneaky suspicion if the roles were reversed, we would behave the same way. I don't even have to say I have a sneaky suspicion. I know that to be a fact already. That's how kingdoms operate. That's how kingdoms operated in Africa. You're going to have the have and the have-nots. That's the world we live in. And it's cool. But I don't want to hear things about equality when you understand I want it, but I don't have to give it back. Then you don't really want equality. What you want, what a lot of women want is they want equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. Which is why I had no feelings about the Maria Taylor issue. It just didn't bother me one way or the other. Because I'm at a point now where I've looked at where all of this started from and where we're at, and it's like, I'm just tired of it. If you want to say men and women are equal, then that's fine. Go outwork them. But stop telling me you want equality, but every time something happens, you want to say, I'm the first Black woman to do this. Or I'm doing this, but I'm Black and a woman. It shouldn't matter. If you want equality, it should just be, yo, I'm good at my job. And that should be it. But it's really about a pat on the back. And it's about equality of outcome. A lot of them don't want to work for what they're supposed to go get. So what they want to say is, which is why I'm not a fan of affirmative action, because all it is a token process. But what it does is, I'm going to give you this. So now what it's teaching you is, I'm giving these positions to certain people because I have to, not because they're best qualified. How can you feel good about a situation like that? And it's an interesting dynamic to me that we haven't really looked at what the Cosby Show actually represented. When you see Claire and her best friend come with their husband, what was the first thing they do? They go put their wigs on from high school and start dancing. Why is that? I've told you guys on plenty of episodes. These black women, they're adults, but they're still in high school. That's why they're still worried about status. They were snubbed for prom queen. They were never the most famous person in high school. So they spend the rest of their life trying to get that feeling of what that would feel like. I'm here to tell you, it's a regular feeling. Like nobody really cares. You think they do, but nobody really cares. So it's why you have a lot of women who play a lot of these childish games until they get to the point where they see what? They get 37, 38, 39, really mid 30s, 34, 35. They start to see, yo, my butt not as perky. It don't sit up the correct way no more. My breast's starting to droop. So now what do you see? You see him starting to wear more revealing clothes, but now everything is getting pushed up. You out dating women, and when you pulling their clothes, you guys are intimate. You rubbing, but now you're rubbing and you're finding out, okay, this is Spanx or this is a girdle holding all this together. And when everything comes off, it's okay. So we was out here having Halloween came early tonight, huh? But that's how that goes. But these women, they stay single for so long because what? Looking for Cliff Huxtable. They've always been looking for Cliff Huxtable. We'll never be able to be Cliff Huxtable. Because 9 times out of 10, a man who makes that money will never play the role Cliff Huxtable played in the house. And see, women saw that growing up. So what they saw was Cliff and Claire never really argued. When they argued, it wasn't any yelling. If she raised her voice, he didn't raise his back. If she got super upset with him, he forgave her and they kind of kissed and made up and went out to dinner and all that. So you have women now thinking, what? When I disrespect him, I should be able to apologize. He should forgive me. But when you get in relationships, you start to realize the Cosby Show was nothing but a fantasy. And it wasn't even a fantasy about how to be married. See, that's another thing they didn't teach you. They didn't teach you about anything that goes on inside of a marriage. They never taught you how to communicate with each other. See, they never had conversations about finances. How is this done? How is that done? We do this. We do that. They showed you him going to bargain Sinbad down to buy a car. That's what you got. That's what you got. You got him going to bargain Sinbad down for a car. But now, when the child is born and the mother is tired, they never showed you Cliff holding a baby, walking around the house saying, you know what? Fathers need to share some of that responsibility of nurturing the child when that child is born. You're going to have to do at least close to half the work to allow her and her body to snap back her to get a mental state together for you guys' relationship to be okay. Because if you don't, I swear, every time I record, this dog start barking. It's been quiet all day. But what I think happens is you get to these points where they don't want to have those conversations. They didn't teach us that. They didn't teach us that a woman will harbor resentment and feel like she's doing everything in a relationship because you didn't help out with the child in the nurturing part when that child was born. They didn't teach you that that woman wants to be wined and dined on a regular basis. They didn't teach you that sometimes just cuddling and communicating is what's most important for a relationship. None of those things were taught to us through the Cosby Show. What was really taught to us through the Cosby Show is, look, men need to respect women. You need to take a lot of the crap you get back from women because they are women, which means what? It's never going to be about equality, which is what I try and tell guys. They want equality of outcomes, but what they still want you to do is still understand I'm a woman. See, a woman will always push, prod, poke, and do all that. A woman even smack you. You smack a woman back, the first thing she's going to say is, why would you hit me? I'm a woman. But I thought we was equal. And so you also understand it's not about equality now because they are now what? Now they have a problem with transgender women using their bathrooms. I just saw a video yesterday of a woman, I think was in the bathroom or in the workout locker room or whatever, and she was walking around with her penis out. And they was just like, yo, I'm not dealing with this. That's not a woman, that's a man. But see, you can be anything you want to be when they want to fight and go in certain spaces. See, when men have all men's club, what do you get? This is misogynistic. This is a good old boys network, basically. They treating us like they treat the black men. Why do you want to be someplace you're not wanted at? And see, when you saw Theo's friend, what did you always see? It was the interracial, it was the white guy who had cancer. I think Denny wasn't too, I don't even know if Denny was smart or not, but Theo was basically the dumbest of all his friends. Unless you want to say he was smarter than Denny. Now, I'm going to even tell you where I really got upset. And it was the final season of it. It was when they realized Dabness was not enough for them. He wasn't good enough for Vanessa until he said, what at the table? I own. And the second Cliff heard own, then the maintenance man was just fine. He said, yeah, I got a property I rent out. But I got my own yard, my own begonias, my own lawnmower. I own. Then he said, get the man some coffee. If he didn't own, he wasn't going to be good enough. See, I don't know if you guys remember the Sandra and Elvin thing. Everything was fine. And I'm going to tell you how crazy a lot of it is still. Everything was fine with Sandra and Elvin. Until Elvin said, I want to open my own wilderness store. And then it fell apart. But I want you to think, Elvin was a chauvinistic pig. But because he was in medical school, well, he was getting ready to graduate and go to medical school. That was the plan. Because those were his aspirations. What did they do? They overlooked all of that to marry their daughter off to him. See, it never was about, they understood he wasn't good for her to begin with. He didn't even have respect for her mother, basically, as they would like to say. But they still found it good enough because of his status Yeah, go marry that. So they let you know already, even when you think about the situation with Elvin, that as long as he was going to pay the cost to be the boss, which there is no pay the cost to be the boss. They just wanted someone to help supplement their income, to help fund the lifestyle. Because the first thing Claire said was when Sandra said, "I'm gonna stay right next to my husband and I'm gonna open this wilderness store with him." What did Claire say? You drop him off and show him what the wilderness is like. And Cliff said, "That's her husband." What did she say? She'll divorce him. She said, "I gave my daughter to him thinking he was going to medical school." So she was all about status. So that was telling you what again? That blue collar guy wasn't good enough, man. And it's why I said when you think of the maintenance situation, only reason Dabness was good enough was because Dabness he had property he owned, he was written out, and he owned his own home. But when you finish watching the Cosby Show, you walk away understanding this. It was about getting black people, black boys, and black girls to aspire to go to college, to get caught up in the student loan hustle. It was also about showing the power of the woman, because when you watch it back, you realize Claire was the head of the household. And it was also stating, if you watched it closely, none of those men were as intelligent as those women. This is your boy, the Hood Nerd, dropping some red pill talk off for you. I'll get at y'all tomorrow. I'm out.